Yo friends, you might recognize this space behind me looks very different from last time when I posted a video. It's been a little while because I've spent the last 2 or 3 weeks putting a lot of energy into building this fence. Less than a month ago, a tree company came and took down the arborvitae that ran between my house and the neighbor's house. He wanted them down as well. We're going to replace them with some other trees, but when those trees came down, it made room and space for me to put up this fence. 300-foot fence kit I bought from Deer Busters. I bought it at like a Black Friday sale, and it's been sitting in my driveway, since like December. So it's really nice to get it out of the driveway, really nice to be completely finished setting it up. And I want to go through that with you today, talk about what the setup process was like, talk about what the fence is like and the quality of the fence, and talk about some things I really loved about it and some things I didn't love so much. This is an unsponsored review, but if you're from the company and want to give me money for the video I already made, I won't say no. In short, if you want the quickie, would I buy from Deer Busters again? Would I buy this product again? Yeah, probably. Are there things I wish were different? Yeah, definitely. So just talking about setup, if you've done anything from like IKEA before, if you've built like Lego sets before, you'll probably be able to follow the instructions here. They had videos, they also had paper instructions. There were a lot of resources for people to use to find and to figure out how to set up this fence. It wasn't that hard. I think I could have set up this fence by myself in like a full dedicated weekend. I did it in 1 and 2 hour bursts in between like preschool and nap time, but if I had a full weekend, I think I could have done it myself. It definitely would have gone faster and easier with 2 people, but I didn't really have other people who could work around my weird schedule. The product itself is pretty straightforward. It's built as a no-dig fence, so there are these tubes here which you can pound into the ground. They provide a cap for you to pound, but you'll need a mallet. I use the back of my wedge axe because I didn't feel like going out and buying a mallet for this one project. And then once those are in the ground, the fence posts here slide right into them. I can still pull it out a little bit here, but it's not really going to wiggle much sideways, which is the important thing. These sleeves are a couple feet long, so they really are in the ground. They're not coming out. Most of them I was able to pound into the ground just fine. They provide a magnetic level, so you can make sure your poles and your posts are pretty straight up and down. There's like 1 or 2, the first few I put in aren't perfect. I got the hang of it pretty quick. These sleeves are a pain in the butt to dig up. I had to do that to 2 of them. So there's a few that aren't perfectly straight, and it's fine enough. It's good enough for me. There was a few spots on my property where I really wanted a post to go. Maybe it just was the perfect corner where it made for a straight line, and it was just really rocky, and I couldn't pound this sleeve into the ground without pulling out a shovel and digging a little bit. For me, in my ground, after the first foot or so, it was smooth sailing, but just be ready for that. You may need to do a little bit of digging. Additionally, one of the problems I found with these sleeves is that if you are pounding it into the ground and you hit a rocky section or a rock, it will bend like this. Now, it'll take 1 or 2 hits without bending, but if you don't realize pretty quickly on that you have found a rock, this is what you're stuck with, and you're gonna have a hard time using this again. I didn't really talk about it in any of the videos I found, but if you are pounding it into the ground, you have to really watch to make sure it goes down a little bit on each pound. As soon as it stops doing that, be really careful. You might have found a rock. In this whole process, I learned pretty quickly. This was the first one that really got bent up, and it was pretty bad. I found a second one, did a second rock, and it got bent maybe half this much, and I was able to use some pliers to really pry it back into shape and still pound it into the ground after that. I maybe could have done this with this one too, but I didn't need it. I had a few extra pieces. If you're doing this project, just make sure you have a pair of pliers on hand. I don't know if it was the shipping company or if it was the packing, but a handful of the poles and the sleeves came with slight dents on them, or dings at the top, so the poles didn't slide into the sleeves at all. So I had to use a pair of pliers to kind of bend everything back into shape. I don't think it'll be a problem long term. It was a little frustrating in the moment, but not that big a deal, just something to be aware of. Something else I really appreciated about Deer Busters, I felt like I had everything I needed and then a little bit more. I was hesitant about buying a 300-foot fence for a while. I really considered buying a 400-foot fence. When I measured out the space, it came to about like 290, 295. And so I was like, oh boy, that's really cutting it close. But when everything came, they sent enough fencing. They sent about 360 feet of fencing. So, and poles enough to cover that too. The rodent barrier at the bottom, that was exactly 300 feet, so I might have needed to purchase a little bit more than that. But for the most part, I would say they sent everything I needed and then a little bit more. Once the posts are in the ground, the big roll of fencing here, you can just start at a post and zip tie it. They provide a pretty fancy tool that allows you to zip tie quickly and cut the zip ties off to make them look neat. You zip tie it, you roll it open to the next one, you know, pull it nice and taut, zip tie it, and you keep going. I think that's a project I would have appreciated a second person for. I think it would have helped just maneuvering the large roll and just having a second person help pull everything nice and taut. For the most part though, I think everything's fine. I bought an 8-foot tall fence, so I really don't think the deer are gonna jump over it if the top is sagging, you know, even half a foot or so, because most of the fences they sell I think are 6- and 7-foot fences. I just wanted to be extra safe, so I got the 8-footer. You know, pretty easy here too with the optional rodent barrier. Same thing, it's a 2-foot wide section of galvanized chicken wire, and you zip tie it to the fence as you unroll it, and you use these stakes to go in the ground. Again, for the most part, these were pretty okay. There was 1 or 2 sections I had to dig around a rock. Now that was something that was a little frustrating and confusing for me. They sent lots of extra pieces, including the heavy metal cap for pounding in those sleeves. I did not even open. I didn't need a second one. But if you followed their instructions to a T, there definitely were not enough zip ties. They suggested zip tying the chicken wire to the fence at every foot, but they provided a total of 300 zip ties. And that was supposed to be used for the regular fence as well as the rodent barrier. So there just weren't enough. If you follow the instructions to a T. That being said, I had left over, so maybe I'll find out I needed to use the zip ties more liberally, but we'll find out. There were some other pieces here in the kit that I could have bought and I did not. One is like a tensioning kit for making sure the top, I think the top is like really nice and tight and taut. I figured it might be worthwhile, but I didn't have the money for it at the time. And you know, let's give it a year. If I don't need it at the end of the year, I'll probably be fine. Additionally, I bought 1 4-foot wide gate. I think maybe eventually I might want a second one, but again, I can just put it in. I can install it another time. I don't need to do that right now, and let's save myself a little bit of money. This rodent barrier here, I just flared it out from the fence. I figured this was easiest. If at the end of the year I'm having a lot of groundhog trouble, I can always go and dig a trench instead and put it directly in a trench. What I'm gonna do here, the only project I have left with this fence is to come through with wood chips and put wood chips on top of this flare. The idea here, and I've seen it before, groundhogs will come up to your fence, and they come to the fence right here and they try to dig down to get under it. They don't think to walk back a foot and dig down. But I think if this rodent barrier is exposed, I think they might figure it out. So I'm gonna try to cover it and make it look like part of the ground, and then they won't be able to dig underneath the fence. Now building this gate, I would say, was the hardest process in all of this. There was just a little bit more technicality putting things together. Additionally, they didn't drill all the holes, so those 2 bolts up there, I had to drill through the metal connector piece as well as the metal pole. And I had to make sure that drill was perfectly straight and then just the right size for the bolt, or it wouldn't go through and it wouldn't fit. And it's, you know, drilling through metal with a cordless drill, so I had to recharge my battery like twice. And you know, maybe I just didn't have the right drill bits or something. I tried a couple different types of bits, but nothing really wanted to drill through metal like that. So that was an absolute pain. I even left these 2 holes undrilled because I didn't really feel like I absolutely needed them, and I just didn't have the mental energy to sit there for another 30 minutes and drill these holes. So that's something I really wish they had pre-drilled some of those holes. Additionally, getting the fence just the right size, so this tiny little gap that groundhogs can't get through on both sides, was a real challenge. What I did was I left some of the fencing a little bit long here, left it overlap, that when I put it in here, I don't think a groundhog is going to be able to push through this. They didn't talk about it in any of the videos, but I also put the wire here underneath the door, so that way if they tried to dig under the door, they would come up against this wire. One thing I found that when I was putting this door together, I realized they sent me some of the wrong pieces. I needed like two 45-inch pipes and one 44, but they sent me two 44s and one 45. I reached out again like months later. It's been months that's been sitting in my driveway. I reached out months later, shared my problem, sent a picture of the pipes, and they responded in by the end of the day, and by the end of the day had shipped that pipe out. I think it arrived the next day, maybe 2 days later, but I was really impressed by that. I was really grateful for their quick service. One thing that was frustrating, and I think I would do differently next time, I had ordered it online, which just everyone does right now, and I just don't think there was as many details online as I really needed, and I wish I had maybe ordered with the salesperson just to talk about things, just to confirm. So here's an example. Online, it gave an option for a reinforced, a sturdy corner post. I had assumed that all the corner posts would be just like this, a pole in the ground with the wire wrapped around it, and if you order the corner post installation thing, it provides like a crossbar that you bury into the ground. What it was, and what I paid extra for, was like a larger, thicker pole with those crossbars that you have to like dig deep into the ground and pour cement into the ground, which I cannot do without going through some legal stuff with the township. This right now is a temporary fence. If I start pulling out the cement, it's a permanent fence and a different problem. They do have those things I initially talked about, just a connector here for their normal size poles that connects to a brace pipe that you can put in the ground here and hold this sturdy. I think that would be more than enough for the project I have right here. I didn't really see any option for that online. Maybe that comes with the standard kit and I upgraded or something. Again, I don't know. I think I wish I had talked to a representative. When I had emailed that problem to the representative, I said I'd have to pay like $35 for those extra pieces. I have a few extra pipes that I could use to brace the corner, but I have to pay $35 to get all of these connector pieces right here that I need. So I'm just going to go without for right now, and I'll probably buy those connector pieces here in a few weeks. So like I said, I appreciate the product. I feel like everything I've read and seen, Deerbusters is considered like the best in the business. So I would probably buy from them again, just because I've worked with the product before in terms of a different farm. I'd been installed for about 4 years and the fence was holding up really great. So I know they last long term. I know that they're fairly easy and straightforward to set up. I wish I talked to a sales representative. I wish they drilled holes in the metal for me. But other than that, I feel like pretty happy with this. I feel confident that this is going to do a much better job protecting my plants from the deer than anything else. Happy growing, friends.